So I want you to picture the scenario. It's Friday, June 7th.
Okay.
You're watching the stock market, which has just been hitting these relentless all-time highs for what feels like forever.
Right. It's just going up and up.
Exactly. But then suddenly, a sharp, violent drop. I mean, the Nasdaq just loses over 4% in a single day.
Which is a massive wipeout.
It is. It's a brutal wipeout. And it's entirely concentrated in the market's biggest, the most heavily traded tech stocks.
The ones everyone owns.
Yeah, the ones everyone has in their portfolio. But here's the crazy part. Within minutes of the closing bell, you turn on any financial TV network, right?
I know exactly where this is going.
You have these pundits, and they're smiling, looking right into the camera and screaming at you to buy the dip. They're calling it an absolute gift.
Because that's what they always do.
Right. So today, in this deep dive, we are looking at why that exact piece of, reflexive optimism might actually be the fastest way to wipe out a decade of your savings.
It is a really dangerous trap right now.
It really is.
Yeah.
So we are pulling apart Volume 1, Report 2 of the Morning Edge newsletter.
Which is dated June 7th, 2026, for context.
Yes, exactly. And the report is appropriately titled, When Buy the Dip Stops Working.
Such a great title.
It really gets to the point.
Yeah.
It was written by Mark Willett. And just for some context on the author before we get into it, Mark brings over 40 years of investment experience to the table.
Which is, that's 4 decades of seeing market cycles.
Yeah, he's seen it all. Plus, he has extensive financial industry experience and operations for some pretty notable investment brokerage firms.
Right. He knows the internal plumbing of how this stuff actually works.
Exactly. And he entered the pursuit of financial research, portfolio modeling, and became the co-host of The Morning Edge when he partnered up with Best of U.S. Investors.
Which brings us to a really important point. Before we dissect the actual mechanics of his report, there is a mandatory disclaimer we just need to get through for you, the listener.
Go for it.
So, just to be clear, this deep dive is not financial advice, nor is it a recommendation to purchase assets.
Yeah.
You absolutely must do your own due diligence before investing.
Always.
Right. And Best of U.S. Investors is an investment research and teaching company. I want to stress that they do not manage money, they don't provide copy trades, and they do not manage cryptocurrency portfolios.
Okay, perfect. So, let's unpack this paradox.
So do it.
You have the broader market taking a severe hit. Like, the specific numbers from that Friday sell-off that triggered Mark's warning are just stark.
Yeah, the data is pretty ugly.
The Dow fell 1.35%.
Right.
The S&P 500 dropped 2.64%. And like I mentioned, the Nasdaq got absolutely hammered, down over 4%.
Hardest hit of all of them.
But the internal damage, if you look under the hood, was even worse.
Oh, definitely.
The semiconductor ETF, the SMH, saw these massive capital outflows dragging it down over 9%.
9% in one day for an ETF is huge.
Right. And the broader tech ETF, the XLK, was off nearly 7%.
So we're talking about a real slaughter in the tech space.
Exactly. Here's where it gets really interesting, though. The market just suffered a massive hit to its biggest leaders, right? Yet the TV pundits are acting like literally nothing happened.
Right, it's just business as usual for them.
Yeah. So why is this reflexive optimism specifically concerning to someone with 40 years of experience like Mark Willett?
Well, what's fascinating here is the media's actual motivation. You have to remember, financial television isn't there to diagnose market mechanics.
Right.
They are programming for engagement.
Yeah.
They want you watching. And telling people to be cautious or, discussing risk management, it doesn't keep viewers glued to the screen.
It's boring or it's scary.
Exactly. But more importantly, buy the dip isn't just some catchy phrase they made up.
It's basically a religion at this point.
It really is.
Yeah.
Because it became a mathematically sound, deeply conditioned response over the last decade.
Right, because of the whole quantitative easing era.
Spot on. Following the 2008 financial crisis, global central banks suppressed interest rates. Right. They just flooded the entire system with liquidity.
They completely changed the game.
They fundamentally altered how markets price risk. Basically, every time equities began to drop or correct, central banks would step in.
Right, with dovish policy or just buying assets outright.
Yeah. So it created this weird dynamic where bad economic news actually became good news for stocks.
Because bad news meant more stimulus was coming.
Exactly. You basically had a guaranteed backstop.
The market basically learned that any drop in price wasn't a reflection of deteriorating business fundamentals at all.
No, not at all.
It was just this brief little window to acquire assets before the central bank printed more money.
Right. It trained a very specific type of muscle memory in retail investors.
And that muscle memory is exactly what Mark Willett is targeting in this report, right?
Yes, he is arguing that the underlying liquidity regime has completely shifted.
Meaning the whole foundation that made buy the dip work for the last decade is just gone.
It's gone. Valuations across the board are stretched to these historical extremes. But honestly, the more critical issue he points out is the leadership.
The narrow leadership.
Exactly. The market's internal support structure is gone. Capital is just wildly concentrated in few high-beta, volatile tech names.
I want to dig into that, actually, the mechanics of that narrow leadership, because I think it explains why that 9% drop in semiconductors is so incredibly dangerous.
Oh, it's the key to the whole thing.
Right, because when capital is that highly concentrated in just, say, 5 or 6 mega cap tech stocks, it completely warps the passive index funds.
Yeah, the mechanics of ETFs are a huge factor here.
Market cap weighted ETFs are basically forced to keep buying those specific leaders as they go up.
Right, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy on the way up.
But the inverse is also true, right? If those few leaders falter, the passive flows reverse.
Yeah, the algorithms just start indiscriminately selling.
Which creates this sort of cascading liquidation event across the entire index.
Exactly. It is not a healthy rotation where capital just moves into other sectors like utilities or healthcare.
No, it's like a structural trapdoor opening underneath the market.
That structural fragility is precisely what the technical data is confirming in his report.
Right, so let's get into the technicals.
Yeah, because Mark moves past the headline numbers. He looks directly at the market internals, and he starts with the 20-day moving average.
Which broke down hard.
Yeah. Both the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ closed decisively below their 20-day moving averages on that Friday.
Let's ground that concept for the listener for a second, because moving averages can sound like just technical jargon.
Yeah, it sounds like just a squiggly line on a chart.
Right. But think of the 20-day moving average as the market's heartbeat. It represents the average cost basis for recent buyers.
It's the collective breaking point for all the capital that flowed in over the last month.
Exactly. So if the price violently drops below that line, it means everyone who bought recently is suddenly trapped.
They're suddenly underwater. Yes. And then human psychology or, institutional risk models, they just immediately take over.
People panic. Or the programmatic stop losses get triggered.
And it forces them to sell just to break even or cut their losses.
Which instantly converts those recent buyers into a massive wall of new overhead supply.
That's the mechanical reality of a broken trend.
It really is. The 20-day moving average dictates short-term control. So closing below it signals that the buyers have stepped away.
The sellers are dominating the price action.
Exactly. But Mark doesn't just look at the moving average. He layers this breakdown with 3 specific momentum indicators.
Right, the Mankey D, the RSI, and slow stochastics.
Right. And he notes that they are no longer confirming the higher prices we saw just weeks prior.
They're diverging.
Yes. They are rolling over and turning down simultaneously.
If the 20-day moving average is the market's heartbeat, then all these momentum indicators rolling over at the same time is like, I don't know, it's like the doctors realizing multiple vital signs are failing all at once.
That is a perfect analogy. It's not just a stubbed toe, right? This is a systemic warning.
Yeah, it's a systemic warning because these aren't just noise.
Right.
The concept of momentum divergence is so critical here. Think about it. If the price of an index is grinding up to new all-time highs,
Okay.
but an indicator like the Mancini, which basically tracks trend direction and strength.
Right. If it's failing to make new highs at the same time.
Exactly. It means the rally is fundamentally hollow.
The price is going up, but the underlying buying pressure is just thinning out.
It's like a car coasting uphill on fumes. It looks like it's moving forward, but the engine is dead.
Wow. Yeah.
And then you add the RSI, which measures the speed of recent price changes, and the slow stochastics, which measure buyer exhaustion.
Right.
When both of those are rolling over alongside the Mancini, you have a synchronized failure.
So the underlying distribution of shares, like from the strong hands to the weak hands, it's reached a tipping point.
That's exactly Mark's key warning here. When all 3 indicators roll over together, selling pressure is actively accelerating.
It's not just a casual dip.
No. Historically, these are the exact mechanical conditions that precede major trend transitions.
Right.
You do not typically see quick V-shaped recoveries when the internal plumbing of the market looks like this. The bounces tend to fail because that overhead supply you mentioned earlier is just too heavy.
The odds have completely changed.
The environment has shifted.
So what does this all mean? I mean, if The media is telling people to buy, but the big money is quietly exiting and the technical internals are breaking down. How do we actually navigate this?
Because the transition from a decade-long bull market to a corrective regime, it's not something most retail investors have a playbook for.
No, they just know buy the dip. And Mark gives us this frankly terrifying quote in the report.
Oh, I know the one.
He writes, most serious drawdowns begin with dips that look buyable.
It's so true. A 5% drop-off an all-time high always looks like a bargain.
Yeah, especially if your only frame of reference is a market that goes up every single month.
But that is the bull trap. Institutional investors rely on this retail psychology. They desperately need liquidity to offload their massive positions.
So when retail investors rush in to buy the dip on the first red day,
They are providing the exact exit liquidity the institutions need to reduce their exposure safely.
they're essentially holding the bag.
Exactly. Buying blindly without any confirmation or leadership stabilization isn't investing.
It's just hoping.
It's gambling on hope, which is why we need to completely rewire our approach to this.
Yeah, so Mark outlines 4 disciplined approaches in the text for surviving this kind of regime change. Let's go through them.
Let's do it. The first one is simple but incredibly hard for people. Patience.
Right. Don't act immediately.
Right. The fear of missing out is the single greatest destroyer of retail capital. Professionals operate on probabilities, not FOMO.
Right, because if the broader trend has shifted negative, the probability of a long trade succeeding just drops off a cliff.
Exactly. So waiting for confirmation isn't missing out.
It saves your capital if prices go even lower.
Yeah. Waiting for the market to prove that a durable bottom has formed, waiting for those moving averages to flatten out, it means you might miss the absolute lowest price.
But you drastically reduce the risk of catching a falling knife and buying into a market that drops another 20%.
Right. It's the difference between trying to catch a falling safe
Oh, man.
and waiting for it to hit the ground before you try to move it.
I love that. Wait for the safe to hit the ground. Okay, so that leads directly into the second point, position sizing.
Yes. How professionals handle the positions they already own when these support levels break.
Because retail investors usually just freeze, right?
They absolutely freeze. They watch a stock drop below a key support zone, and they just hold on tight, hoping it magically comes back.
But Mark advocates for avoiding all-or-nothing decisions. He talks about scaling out.
Right. Scaling out removes that paralyzing binary choice of either being fully invested or entirely in cash.
So if a key technical level breaks, what does a professional do?
They mechanically reduce their risk. They might sell 25% or maybe 50% of the position.
Okay.
If the stock miraculously turns around and goes higher, great. They still have skin in the game.
Right.
But if it continues to plummet, they've protected a massive chunk of their capital. And now they have the flexibility to buy it back at a much lower valuation.
Which brings us to the third point, and this is where I want to push back a little bit on behalf of the listener.
Okay, let's hear it.
Mark's third point is that cash is not a failure.
Right.
But look, the reality for the everyday listener right now is complicated. We are living in an economic environment where inflation is just eating away at the dollar's purchasing power every single day.
That's true. Everything is getting more expensive.
Housing, food, energy. So sitting in cash for 6, 8, or maybe 12 months while waiting for this so-called bottom to form, it feels like a guaranteed, mathematically certain loss.
I get that.
How does Mark justify eating that inflation loss just to feel safe? Why is there this immense pressure for retail to be 100% invested while pros view cash as a tool?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the inflation argument is actually the exact narrative the financial industry uses to keep your capital fully deployed at all times.
They want you fully invested so they collect fees.
Right. But look at the math. A 3 or 4% annualized loss to inflation is a slow bleed.
Okay.
But a 35% capital drawdown because you refuse to raise cash during a structural market breakdown.
Oh, yeah. That's a traumatic loss.
That is a compounded loss that takes years, sometimes a whole decade, to recover from. The goal isn't to avoid every single minor loss.
Right.
The goal is to avoid the catastrophic losses.
Yeah.
Cash is not a failure. It is the strategic asset class. It provides clarity, removes emotional buying, and most importantly, it provides absolute optionality.
Optionality, meaning it gives you the asymmetric advantage of having capital when assets are actually cheap.
Exactly, not just slightly discounted on a Friday afternoon.
Right.
When a true liquidity crisis hits, and margin calls start forcing institutional selling across every sector, everything goes on sale.
regardless of fundamental value.
Exactly. And if you are 100% invested on the way down, you are just a passenger suffering the ride.
You can't do anything but watch.
But if you hold strategic cash, you become the liquidity provider at the exact moment of maximum panic.
Wow.
That is when generational wealth is built. So the temporary drag of inflation is just the insurance premium you pay for that optionality.
That really reframes cash completely. It's not idle money. It's coiled energy waiting to be deployed.
That's a great way to look at it.
Which brings us to the fourth, and honestly, probably the most emotionally difficult discipline Mark discusses.
Separating conviction from confirmation.
Yes. You can spend hundreds of hours researching a company, right? You know their supply chain.
You love the management team.
Their earnings are spectacular. But Mark warns that liking a company's long-term story doesn't immunize the stock from a brutal short-term drawdown.
No, it doesn't. Because a phenomenal company is still tethered to the macroeconomic tide.
Right.
If the broader market is undergoing a mechanical liquidation phase, like we're seeing in the data, the baby gets thrown out with the bathwater.
Because of those passive index selling algorithms we talked about earlier.
Exactly. The ETF algorithm does not distinguish between a company with great free cash flow and a company that is burning money.
It just sells them both.
It sells everything.
So your fundamental conviction about the company's 10-year horizon is completely irrelevant to what the stock price is going to do over the next 10 weeks.
Totally irrelevant.
Okay.
And professional portfolio managers know how to compartmentalize this.
They respect price action over their own beliefs.
Right. They can acknowledge a company is a great long-term hold, but if the market is flashing severe caution signals,
Like the broken moving averages and momentum rolling over.
then they reduce their risk. They listen early because they know that reacting late is far more costly. They let the price action dictate their exposure, not their personal affection for the company's narrative.
The market simply does not care about your conviction.
It really doesn't.
That is a brutal truth to absorb, but it perfectly synthesizes the core message we're extracting today for the listener.
I think so, yeah.
I mean, buy the dip isn't inherently wrong, right? But applying it mechanically, especially after these extended rallies and clear technical deterioration, it's just incredibly dangerous.
It's a recipe for profound capital destruction right now.
Exactly. When every talking head on television agrees on a trade, the easy money has usually already been made. They're just looking for someone to buy their shares on the way out the door.
Surviving a regime change like this really requires abandoning that muscle memory of the past decade.
You have to look at the actual mechanical health of the market.
You have to recognize when momentum is diverging and understand that capital preservation is way more critical than trying to catch the absolute bottom of a volatile drop.
We've covered so much ground today, from the mechanics of ETF selling to the strategic use of cash. But the absolute most vital takeaway is recognizing when the environment itself has fundamentally shifted.
And that leads to a really important question for anyone managing their own money right now. If the easy money of the past decade's liquidity regime is truly over, what specific criteria will you require the market to prove to you before you deploy your own hard-earned cash into the next inevitable dip?